Hello, and welcome back to Doing Stuff with Larry. Today we're going to be building the compact L298 motor driver, and the L298 is a strong, useful dual motor IC, but it's tough to use by itself. So the SolarBotics compact L298 motor driver kit tames this beast and puts it into a convenient package featuring 6 to 26 volt operation, 4 amp total drive current, accessible 5 volt regulator voltage, motor direction indicators, LEDs, EMF protection diodes, and small 40 millimeter square footprint. So this is a kind of a small board. And so the first thing we're going to do is put in the parts. Put in the smaller parts first, and then we'll go on to the larger parts. So we're going to put in R1 and R2. This happens to be R2 at the moment, and we'll work from the right-hand side to the left-hand side. And so in building a printed circuit board, you want to try to put the smaller parts in first, the ones that are difficult to get in place. And when you put parts in, you want to be able to read the parts from top to bottom, left to right. And if they're stand-up components, you would read them from away from the board, down towards the board. I'm using flux to help the solder flow. Normally we would build this with the soldering from the source side, which is the back side of the board, to the front side, but I find that it's easier to tack parts in and then turn the board over and finish soldering. That gives you that keeps the parts from falling out. So next we're going to put the the R1 component in. And I'm just bending the leads. The leads come unbent, so I'm bending them so that they'll fit in the holes. So this is a dual motor controller, and it's kind of a high voltage motor controller, or a higher voltage motor controller. Controls up to 28 volts. The motors I have can go up to 28 volts at full speed. This is a little tight. We're going to bend it a little bit tighter. I mean, it's a little bit wide apart, so we're going to bend it a little bit tighter so we can get it to go in the board and lay down flat against the board. That supports the components, the parts, so they don't suffer from vibration. This does now. There we go. And again, we use flux. to help the solder flow. So next we're going to put diodes in. We have 8 diodes, 4 on one side for one motor controller and 4 on the other side for the other motor controller. And I left one out so you could see the marking on the board where it has this little line here. And this on the diode itself, it has this gray stripe or gray band. So that's trying to tell you that, or let you know for sure, that this diode has to go in a certain direction. The gray part needs to be towards the square pad. The gray band needs to be towards the square pad. And once the diode's in place, you can't see that. So I wanted to show that on camera. These are polarized diodes, so if they're put in backwards, they'll probably short out and stop the motor from working, or they'll short out and blow up themselves. Here we go. So all the diodes are in place. Now all we have to do is solder them. And since there's so many of them, it'll take a little while to get them all soldered in place. So we're going to flux them all up. If you do too much flux, too wide a spread of flux, the flux will start drying up. So don't want to put flux all over the board and then have it dry up. So then you just have to flux it again. So I'm going to flux these again since it takes a little bit of time. So right now I'm just tacking these in place. I know it looks like a larger than just tacking in place. So I'm trying to get the solder to flow all the way through the board. And I'm using a little bit of a small iron. So it's taking a little bit more heat out of the iron, and the solder's not flowing as fast or as smoothly. So it may not go to the other side of the board. And we want the solder to flow all the way through the board. When it's finished, I'm going to turn this over after I've done this side and flow solder on all the pads to ensure that the solder's flowed on both sides. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to heat up the pad and the component and the solder all at once. Once I get a bridge or a connection heat transferring bridge. I'm moving the soldering iron around so that it's getting all the parts of the pad. There we are. All right, so next we're going to put in a little capacitor, C2. It's kind of small, so it's kind of small, but it's a stand-up capacitor. And it goes right here in the middle of the board. Oh, like I said, it's kind of small. So it's a little tricky to hold on to. And we want that to be up in the air a little bit. So we're going to pause and we're going to make a little tool to hold that up in the air. All right, so I've got the components out, the LEDs, the light emitting diodes. This is a light emitting diode. We have a green one and a red one. We have green for go and red for stop, or green for forward and red for reverse of the motor. There are two ways to tell which the diodes need to go in a certain direction. And so there's two ways to tell. There's a flat section on the diode. It's very difficult to see in the camera, but there's a flat on this side. Here it is, flat on this side. And it lines up with the shorter lead. And the shorter lead goes in the square hole, and the shorter lead is the cathode. The shorter lead is the cathode, the longer lead is the anode. And so they're polarized, so you can't just put them in any direction. They have to go in the correct direction. Now we're going to put the green down the bottom. We can get it lined up with the hole. There we go. Not letting me drop all the way through, so we're going to trim the leads off a little bit. That. Now, in this case, the diode going all the way against the board is helpful because that keeps the diode standing straight up, and it gives it some support so it doesn't vibrate. And the flats on the diodes have to line up in order for them to fit in this board. They won't fit without those flats being lined up like that. Now I won't be able to solder these from this side, so we'll have to turn the board over and solder them from the other side. So I'm trimming the leads off because I don't have a vise that's high enough to keep the leads off of the vise, so, and that's what's not allowing me to let it go all the way in unless I trim the leads off. All right, so they're all in place. Now I'm going to turn the board over and solder them. I'm going to hand hold the diodes, and we'll show you after I finish soldering. I don't think you need to see the soldering part of it, so we'll be back in just a moment. Okay, so while we were gone, I installed the electrolytic capacitor. And since I was soldering from the other side of the board, I also installed a couple other parts. So I installed these, this little black strip with 3 holes in it, and this black strip on this side with 3 holes. Excuse me. These are for controlling the motor controllers. This will be connected to the Arduino board that will do the controlling for us. And so these are called headers. These are also called, so they're female sockets or sockets. Along with that, there's a connector here that will be for incoming power, for powering the motors. And since this drives 2 motors, there's connections, a socket set or a connection set connector for both left and right motors, or top and bottom motors, or two different motors. In my case, I'm going to drive 2 motors that'll be on the left and right, or port and starboard, because this motor controller is going to be used to drive motors that are on a remote operated vehicle, underwater vehicle. So they abbreviate that by saying ROV, R-O-V. And so I only have 2 other components to install. There's the L298 integrated circuit, and there's another component that goes in here that distributes the power. So that those 2 components need to go in. Again, they are soldered from the back side of the board. So I'll temporarily do that and stop the video and put those in, and then we'll come back and show that to you. All right, so we installed the last components. Smaller part here. This is a voltage regulator, and out here, this is the L298 chip for controlling the motor speed and direction. And now we're going to turn this board over and finish soldering it and cut off the leads, trimming the leads off, and we'll give you a shot of that in a second. All right, so this is the back side of the board, and you may be able to notice that not all the leads are soldered. Again, I was just holding parts in place. This lead is soldered, but these leads are not soldered, and then this lead is soldered. There's only 1 lead soldered on this component. The diode, the LED, only has 1 lead soldered, the other one is not. Again, with the connectors that I put in, the blue connectors, only 1 lead is soldered. So I'm going to trim all these all leads off, and then we'll finish up soldering we'll solder every single spot on the back side of this board.